Welcome back, everybody. Now we're going to take a look at a newly announced game called Hunt: Horrors of the Gilded Age. Here to tell us all about it is David from Crytek USA. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You just recently announced Hunt, I think last week, right?
Yep, about a week ago. Yep.
Showing it here at E3 for the first time.
Yes.
Tell us all about it.
So Hunt's about hunting monsters in the late 1800s. It's kind of like Sherlock Holmes meets Lovecraft or Cowboys versus Monsters, whichever way you want to think about it. And it's a co-op action RPG.
Co-operative for how many players?
It's up to 4 players. Yeah.
So tell us about what we're seeing here. We have to assassinate the witch, apparently.
So it's an RPG, and there's all kinds of cool progression, and the game kind of centers around hunting down, tracking these bosses, these myths and legends of the time period, and killing them essentially. And so what you're seeing here is sort of the culmination of all that. They've tracked down a boss called a Nightmare Witch, which is actually a folklore from the bayous of Louisiana about a witch that comes to you when you're sleeping and lays on your chest or something like that.
Oh, that actually sounds kind of hot.
It's pretty creepy. Right? Well, the pictures are kind of creepy.
Okay.
But anyway, in this case, we've turned that into a boss in the game. So that's kind of the theme of the game. We've taken these myths and legends from the time period, or really any time in human history leading up to the 1800s, and you as players are basically going out to kill them.
And we're looking at a 4-player game here, 4-player match.
Yeah, absolutely.
So who are the enemies that we're fighting?
So in this case, this area of the game, there's many different areas of the game across the globe. We want it to be a pretty international monster hunting game. But in this area in the Louisiana South, you're fighting a lot of hillbillies, and there's a bit of a sort of a twisted voodoo theme. And so that's a persistent theme in the game. We try to take some elements of the locale and sort of twist it into a nightmare version of itself. So these guys are all pumped up on voodoo, dark magic, and that sort of thing. So
hopped up on voodoo pills.
Yeah, so they're kind of like the crazed cultists in the area. But there's a lot of diverse enemies. Even in this area, there's undead, there's these guys, there's like voodoo priestesses, and every area of the game features its own unique blend of creatures that kind of dictates the style of play.
Now, is this area a level that you progress through, or is this sort of a kind of contained arena, like a horde mode?
Sure, the games are actually mission-based, so and they're randomly generated, which is really cool. So the layout's randomly generated, the creatures are, the events, the special encounters. The only thing that's fixed in this mission is actually the boss fight at the end. So if you did this boss fight multiple times,
just died there.
Yeah, your path to that boss and what happens is going to change every time. And outside the boss fights, everything's randomized, including the objectives. So the idea, we wanted this sense of like infinite adventure. Every time you go in, something different's happening. And as you can see, it is a pretty deadly game. It is period accurate. Weapons reload 1 bullet at a time. Shotguns are breech loaded and only have 2 shells. So you're not firing off tons of rounds. You're not reloading super quick with a clip. Like, it is a little slower, more deliberate, a little more survival horror-y, and the stuff will kill you, and you got to work together to survive.
So are we looking at realistic weapons, or is there any sort of fantasy, supernatural weaponry?
It starts very grounded. Like what you're seeing here are very period-accurate weapons.
Yeah.
You'll see a little later a flamethrower, where we get into like what we consider future tech of the 1880s, and there were flamethrowers in World War I, so it's not that far timeline-wise. So we imagine the monster hunters are able to cobble together technology that's a little ahead of its time, but not crazy out there.
That's believable.
And eventually you do kind of use the powers of the occult and the dark powers that you're fighting to fight against them, so you get more fantastical elements in the game as you play further along.
So getting to the witch is a matter of finding her, or surviving long enough that she comes after you?
Yeah, outside of this, they would have done a bunch of missions. Like, that's where the randomness comes in. You might go into a mission, there might be a bad ritual going on, or you have to destroy a dark altar or rescue some innocents. And you're basically tracking down clues to find information about this boss.
Okay.
And then once you do, in this case, they've located her, and now they're going to try to get into her her lair, and all these crazy cultists are basically defending her and preventing you from getting there. So you're fighting your way to the boss, and these missions aren't too long. It's about 10 minutes to get to a boss in this case, or a little less.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
This is actually an example of the respawn system. So you die a lot in this game. We want to make respawning cool. So in this case, this guy respawned in a coffin, but you might respawn hanging upside down or tied to a chair or on a conveyor belt about to be cut in half by a giant saw blade.
And does someone have to let you out?
Someone has to let you out. And in this case, he's like looking through the cross in the coffin door, peering out at what his friends are doing, it's often fun when you're doing that and you see the guy out there die. The guy that was supposed to rescue you. But
so can you play the game solo?
Yeah, absolutely. We want it to be so you can play any combination of 1 to 4 players. I mean, there are some of the more epic bosses where you have to bring a group.
Okay.
But in general, normal missions and even some of the smaller bosses, you could do 1, 2, 3 players or 4 players.
Are there different classes of characters?
So one of the cool aspects of the game is that you kind of build your own archetype. And we really wanted to build a system where if you've seen something in a movie or a TV show or in fiction in that time period, you can make it. So you can make a Sherlock Holmes type character. You can make like Outlaw Josie Wells or any cool gunslinger from a Western. You could be Annie Oakley or a witch hunter in Eastern Europe. And it really is, if you've seen it in fiction or in a book or in a movie in the time period, we want you to be able to make that archetype. And that's how they look. That's the weapons they carry, the abilities they have. It's everything about them.
So can you tell us about that character creation process? You're customizing the look of your character and assigning certain abilities?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And you have a fixed number of slots, right?
Yeah.
So you got to pick and choose what type of weapons you're going to bring, what types of abilities. The cool thing is you can have multiple archetypes or characters at a time. So you could have your gunslinger and you could have your city slicker medical guy. And so if you're playing with friends and one guy wants to be more of a damage dealing guy, you're like, you know what, I'll play my doctor. So you're kind of playing this whole monster hunting group, not just necessarily an individual character.
How many scenarios, bosses are we looking at?
So right now this is one boss, but our goal is to have more bosses than any game ever. Like this game is all about killing crazy, horrific bosses. And they'll range the gamut from ghosts to more Lovecraftian, Cthulhu type creatures to pretty much anything in between. And that's really the big draw of the game. Not only are we going to deliver a ton of bosses when we launch the game, we're going to continually update the game with bosses on a very regular basis. And launch is expected to be this year? Launch is actually non-announced, but we are doing a closed beta this year in the fall.
Okay.
And so people can go to huntthegame.com and sign up now and get in and get a chance to play the game. This is an example of some of the quote-unquote future weaponry. So this is a flamethrower, which they didn't really have flamethrowers in the 1880s, but we designed weapons like that. We try to think about, hey, if someone in that time period had to make a flamethrower, how would they make it? It's not going to be like a modern flamethrower.
This is another respawn
Yeah,
scenario?
This guy actually respawned hanging upside down, which is kind of fun because you see everything from the world upside down.
Yeah.
And it can be frustrating, like in this case, when the guys don't rescue you right away, and you just suffer trying to watch them fight off whatever's attacking them. But they make some pretty interesting moments. The other cool aspect is there's actually friendly fire in the game, so there's a lot of coordination as far as, hey, if you're using a flamethrower, you can't just go crazy because you're going to burn your own guys, or if you're using a shotgun in close quarters, you're going to probably hit your own teammates, so you kind of have to work together on that thing.
Well, it looks very pretty. It's being developed for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC.
Yep, absolutely. And this is so there's a ton of items in the game that aren't guns, and we're not talking about a lot of them because we haven't finalized them. We don't want to talk about stuff, but you can imagine pretty normal stuff like dynamite or a medical bag to heal guys, but there is also a lot of cool occult-based stuff, and in this case, he used a magical item called a Seeing Stone that allows him to see the path through the level. But that's not a built-in automatic ability. That's something you have to equip in your loadout. So you might work with friends and say, hey, you bring that, I'll bring the healing thing, I'm going to bring dynamite, and we plan to have tons and tons of items like that in the game that you earn by killing bosses, and you kind of find the recipes for building those items.
So where do the RPG mechanics come into play?
So that comes into play really in how you build your character, how you unlock all those items, how you unlock everything in the game you unlock over time. So abilities and items, weapons, all that special stuff. So as you kill bosses, you'll find occult recipes to make crazier weapons, or you might make magical items and stuff like that to help you fight the bosses. Now this is actually the Nightmare Witch now.
This is the witch?
Yeah, this is the witch. But yeah, there's a lot of cool strategy as far as like when you fight a particular boss, you might have to bring certain items to try to defeat them because they're going to have certain strengths and weaknesses. So you may have to go out and find the recipes to create those different items to try to defeat those bosses. So that's where a lot of the RPG and strategy that comes into play.
Are you earning experience?
What's that?
Do you earn experience points?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys. I mean, it's not like an RPG in the Mass Effect sense. But it's definitely an RPG in like the action RPG sense.
Okay.
Where there's a lot of progression and experience and growth of your characters and build up of items over time. This is an example of like we try to put a lot of cool co-op mechanics in the bosses. So the witch has actually pulled one of the characters into her nightmare realm, and they're the only one that can see her. But like this guy's the only one that can see her. But if they shoot her, everybody else sees her briefly in the normal world for a while. So he's kind of got to keep painting the target so the other guys can continue to attack.
Why the choice to go free to play?
Really, for us, it was a matter of business model. That's something Crytek wanted to pursue. I think it's an interesting idea because we're just making a game that's what we would have made as a normal retail game. Sure. Our goal is you look at the game and you go, yeah, I'd pay $60 for that. Yeah. But our plan is you get that for free. That whole experience you would have paid $60 for is absolutely free. There's no like artificial gates. There's no artificial time limits. There's no pay to win. None of that. You do get the game for free, and then we thought that would be cool and interesting. It's like no one's really done that before. And there's cosmetic items and other random stuff tangentially you can buy that we hope will pay for the game, but you know, we really do plan to give that core game away for free and see how people respond. And you know, it's like in our head, it's like AAA free-to-play game. How's that going to work? So we'll see how it works out.
You guys are formerly Vigil Studios, creators of Darksiders.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there any themes, elements, mechanics that Darksiders fans would recognize here?
I think you'll see a lot of the same DNA from our games. You know, we like to make cool creatures, cool bosses.
Sure.
There's a lot of cool fantasy in there. We love adventure, exploration. You'll see all those elements. It's like the DNA of Darksiders will be in this game, even though it's a co-op monster hunting game.
Cool. The game looks very cool. Thanks for bringing it by, David.
Yep.
Do let us know when you plan to launch.
I will, absolutely.
Viewers, stay tuned. Next, we're going to take a look at Diablo 3 on PlayStation 4. We'll be right back.